Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
Welcome back to the Jam. I'm super excited for this one. We've got a returning guest, but he's at a different brand now. We've got Mike D'Elia joining us from Grüns.
What's up?
What is up? First brand returning guest, I think. That makes you super special.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me back. I love jamming with you. So stoked to talk on some funnel optimizations.
Of course. Yeah, let's talk funnel optimization. Let's talk offers. Let's just jam on getting customers in, getting customers engaged, getting them buying through different personalizations, different offers, and how we actually find those different things. So I know through previous conversations / just listening to you on the Internet of Things, one of your big things you're kind of like focused on right now is these personalized funnels, these optimized funnels, these like offer optimized funnels. Maybe for our listeners, like, what does that mean to you? And like, what's the value in doing that?
For sure. We just like take a big step back on like the personalized funnels and just kind of discuss what that means for Grüns. So I'm at Grüns. We are a comprehensive nutritional supplement. We are healthy for everyone, which means our TAM is massive. So how do you like go identify like those customers? And what we've really built out, our amazing creative strategy team has built out, is like this persona mining engine that goes and creates like ad creative to lander congruency with like very specific persona in mind. Like it's double clicking into the gut health girly, and it's like, does the gut health girly go to Pilates or do they go to a spin class? And like very, very specific even within those like sub personas. So those are those like personalized funnels I'm talking about. We have like a specific ad within an ad set, and then we also have like a landing page to match that content that makes it feel like very congruent to drive the message home that like Grüns is for this person. So that's like that's our starting point right now.
Yep.
Like, a very easy place to start from with all this like kind of infrastructure built in. And then there's like connecting the offer itself, which is I think what we're getting at. And it's like, is it like our standard welcome offer there? Is there some other like partnership we want to deploy there? We're going to talk about this later, but there's a big like gift with purchase initiative going on at Grüns right now, which has been like really, really fun and trying to dial in those gifts for those specific persona. And yeah, like that's really where it starts on that persona mining end. And then I think like the work I've been doing with Intelligems just on ecom has been figuring out that offer connectivity and really pressure testing, like what is the ideal offer and way to position Grüns for these different types of funnels.
I love that. So essentially you use the persona mining to figure out like, who are we talking to? What do they care about? Sociographic, demographic, like what does this person look like? Okay, how do we put the best ads in front of that person? And then you're talking about that congruency. They click from the ad, they end up in the site experience, and like they're seeing content, things that are right for that audience. Then you come along and you say, okay, this is feeling right for this persona through this funnel. What are the different things we're going to put into this funnel to get better conversion for us to hit the goals that we're looking for as a company? Is that kind of like an accurate statement of like where it was and like now what we're optimizing inside of?
Exactly. And I would say like to double click on that too, that there are markers, right? Like it's definitely not like vibes. It's like, is it like a high, is it a super high like percent new visits, or is it like not, is it like kind of like middle of funnel where we can try something a little more like value driven versus like a little bit more existential offer driven, which could be like a partnership with a Pilates studio or something like that. That's like really, the value might not be as apparent as like really focusing on like a discount, for example. So like we're definitely like taking under consideration like traffic mix as well as like where majority of the traffic is in the funnel, and trying to optimize from there. But yeah, like one thing that is really fun is like with those personas in the gift with purchase like complexion, do we try to mix in something that's like very pertinent to that specific persona, or like does it make more sense to just choose like something ubiquitous like an Apple product versus something that's like hyper specific to a persona that we may think connects. And that's been like a really kind of fun exercise and something we're noodling with at Grüns.
Interesting. So even with the offer or the gift, you kind of have this like, okay, let's look at the traffic. Let's look at the mix. Like, do we go more broad? When I say broad, I mean like an offer that is like appealing to a lot of people, just kind of has this like universally understood value. Or do we go like more narrow on what the offer is, where it's like for that Pilates person, it's a Pilates studio and it's a Pilates studio gift card that's on like the Northeast because like we know the majority of people are over there. Like we can get really specific with that. So as you're thinking about these like offer, like we've got these different funnels, we've got these different personas. We use the word personalization. We're going to try to personalize these offers for them. How do you decide what that offer is going to be? Like what, for those listening, like what can they look at that you're looking at to get a better understanding of like what offers am I going to try? And like for everyone listening, I know Mike's going to give us some like great kind of like best practices here, but like I know Mike is experimenting with all of these. It's like, again, he said it's not vibes. It's like we're trying things, we're learning things, we're getting signal, we adjust.
Yeah, totally. I like what you said about like the kind of like broad offer for everyone, and that to me is like overt like value driven. Whether like a really strong packaging of your welcome offer, being like, hey, you're gonna save X dollars right now. Maybe not even like mention the gift with purchase. It might be active, or it might not be in that particular funnel. Like we would kind of like test that. Like, do we see it on like the NCAC side? Like, is it driving incremental visits or not? Is it better to focus on this like direct offer? And then like with like deploying like the gift with purchase, it's like, okay, like do we actually think this persona can benefit from like the addition of gift with purchase, and like does it affect NCAC positively, or technically does it make it go down? And then and then at the same time, like, does that connection kind of work on the lander? So I would say like the choosing kind of comes in partnership with the CS team, and like where do we think we can deploy this? And I would say like if you're on any sort of social media and seeing our ads, like you're going to see like probably and go on the Meta ads library as well. You can see like a lot of more of our mix is becoming gift with purchase. And that's because we're finding that like messaging it in the ad is actually helping us reach like new audiences. So I think like that decision comes from that sort of like line of thinking and the data that we have to activate against. But to be tactical, like why, I guess we could talk about like why gift with purchase in the first place, and like what that means for a subscription brand particularly. So I think it's really neat. So you have like your Grüns has like a hero product being the Grüns sort of monthly dosage. And you can purchase it in 3 ways. You can get a one-time purchase, which I do not suggest. You can subscribe on a monthly shipping interval. So every month you receive your big gusset of Grüns, and you have little sachets to take every day, which are delicious. Or you can save a little bit more and get 3 monthly servings delivered every 12 weeks, which is like a quarterly cadence. Obviously, that looks really great for LTR. But also it's saving the customer a little bit of money. And if they like to get all the products up front, so they're traveling and just kind of like want to have everything together, it's convenient for people of that lifestyle. So there are a few ways now, like now that we have like the kind of like our smorgasbord of options, like how do you incentivize like purchase of each one? You can do a welcome offer. Welcome offer is just effective on the first purchase. What we found, and like we're always pressure testing this, is that with the welcome offer, it's kind of a race to the bottom, and it also anchors the customer in a price that is like artificial. So they come into this like really sleek welcome offer. It's like, okay, you're saving on the subscription, you're saving an additional amount on the welcome offer, and we're giving away free shipping. Sick. And then their recurring order hits 28 days later, and they're like, what the heck? Why is it like 40% more expensive? And that delta is, and like I'm sure anyone who's listening who runs a subscription brand, they're like, that's a big reason for churn, right? That's too expensive. Yeah. So pressure testing that delta is something that like we started with. Is like what that distance between first order and recurring order, like how can we compress that or make it less severe? And then naturally that kind of led to gift with purchase.
Gift with purchase. Do you want to? So my original question there, I was asking like, hey, how should someone choose what to offer, the type of offer, the amount? Like, you've been playing around with gift with purchase, you play around with like what that gift's going to be. You've been playing around with like the discount side of things. What is like the ultimate strategy of Grüns to decide these things? Like, what are you targeting? Because like you're saying like, hey, I don't want a discount. I want to reduce this delta because I want them to get to the next purchase. Like someone listening might be like, Mike, my ultimate goal is conversion. I don't recommend this, but like my ultimate goal is conversion. So like I always rip discounts as the offer. Like what are you specifically targeting to move as you introduce these different offer types?
Our golden ratio and the way we run the business is a ratio of NCAC to LTV. So there are many things that move NCAC. That's like whether that's on the efficiency side or the conversion side. And there are many things that move LTV, right? That's on the subscription, the value of the product, the unboxing, the subscriber experience, et cetera. So like whichever, like it's like a bed sheet, whichever corner of the bed sheet you pull, you're going to move another corner, and you kind of have to be very delicate with like how you get it to sit squarely on the bed. And I think that's what this like process is right now. And this is like more so, I guess, on the NCAC side with a mind towards LTV. Like we do want to keep the percent of subscription orders healthy. So like we have strong cohorts, but what we're talking about right now is like that ad to lander congruency and then additionally that offer, I think rolls back into conversion rate, which ultimately impacts NCAC at this point. But yeah, that's like our North Star.
I love the bedsheet analogy. Like something we see here at IntelliGEMS all the time is like everyone always wants to run an experiment because they want to move a specific metric, but like it almost never moves that metric in isolation. Like everything we do in D2C is a trade-off. Something goes up, something goes down, something stays the same. So like as you're putting these offers together, like one thing you said a little bit earlier that was interesting to me is like, hey, we might run the welcome offer, which is a discount, but then there might be like a gift with purchase, like further in the funnel and like moving people along. How do you, as like an experiment minded operator, try to understand like what each of these pieces is doing? Like, are you able to kind of like isolate into this is effective and I know this specific piece is effective versus like, well, the entire experience is like trending in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Grüns infrastructure that I alluded to earlier has its advantages in that it is like isolated. So when someone clicks on an ad and lands on one of these like persona driven landers, there isn't like a navigation to really anywhere else on the site to interact with like different elements. So like we're fairly confident that like executing a change on that page, like the modification will be seen. That being said, like it's not guaranteed unless you have like certain markers. So shout out to IntelliGEMS for having these like custom metrics, but we'll add like a custom scroll depth metric on like the executive class that we have the modification in, or we'll put like custom click events on elements that are specifically in the modification area, so we can like kind of guarantee that like, okay, like these clicks interacted with the modification that we had. And we can look at like, conversion rate or whatnot based on those filters. So that's a very like tactical way of like setting up the test and like having, I guess, good hygiene on your test setups to be like, okay, like there's like, I've done everything I can to have like a clean testing environment at this point. So that's like sort of the first thing. And the other part of that then on the back end is like, IntelliGEMS does have like an order and line items export. So you understand like what order came through this experience. Now, if they're like cookied and like they saw this experience, like they may have interacted with it, but they ultimately ordered on a different page, that's kind of like hard to isolate out. And like, how do they do that? You said the funnels are isolated. Well, they can like, they can have the window open and then go to grüns.co. And then that's kind of it. Like, it's still the same like session or click ID, but it's like, they're ultimately like on some other part of the site. So, the way you can do that is like, we have like some sort of, and this isn't like arbitrary or proprietary, but like you can tag on the buy box on the product form specifically, or have like a custom attribute that passes through checkout. So it's like, okay, this person checked out on this page. So we know that like that was their kind of like journey in the funnel ad lander. And then like, eventually like through into checkout by way of this specific page. And then you can get like really granular with those cohorts and be like, okay, like, these people checked out here, received this in their order from this landing page. So you can really like drive it back to like the change I made, like, was responsible for like this amount of like LTR over time. So those are like some kind of like tricks and tips for healthy testing.
Yeah, I like putting like the custom markers or the custom metrics in certain places because I maybe I'll say something here and see if you agree with this. Is like you want the ability to dive in and get into the details and get granular when you want to go very specific on something. You want to have that optionality to like cut the data by specific markers, cut the data by like what was in the cart, like all those kind of like things in the back end that you were talking about allow you to get super granular when you need to, not necessarily that like you need to cut it that way every single time because of some of the hygiene things you were talking about. Like, hey, I have this isolated funnel for the most part. Now, we can't say with certainty. And like, I would argue that we're never going to get perfect attribution in D2C anyway. So it's just it's a losing battle. It's like, hey, we can go into this isolated experience and like, it's going to give me the signal I'm looking for based on the experiment. And hey, if I'm seeing something that isn't vibing or is like not lining up with the hypothesis I went into test, okay, now I can look into the market. Like, are they even seeing the thing? If they are seeing the thing, like where are they going next? And like start to get a little more granular like that.
Yeah, well, when it's an isolated experience in particular, it sort of doesn't make sense to look at a site-wide impact. There are other things that do make sense to look at site-wide impact, whether they're actual like merchandising elements, like a nested menu or an update to your footer. Like those are obvious sort of like site-wide impacts. There are other ones that are like less obvious, which I think is like a homepage update or something to the PDP, where it's like maybe not every single visitor is going to interact with that modification, but you want to see the change in aggregate because it's like you can assume that like over time, most visitors will kind of interact with this element. So there are benefits to that. I still think with like the specific like add to lander funnel and it's like super tight, there isn't really a way to get to the larger site. Sometimes you're on a subdomain, so it's even like wonkier trying to back that into like how does this increase aggregate conversion rate? So it's like I would say like you have your targeting set on that specific page. Like you really just kind of want to look at you want to get granular there. That being said, I think what is difficult for marketers, and we're having this like big debate right now, is all right, we have all these isolated funnels, meaning that we have to run this test like the duplicate test like on 4 different pages. And we have to like monitor it all like in like at the same time. How does it make sense to like look at it in aggregate? Like, do I ask Claude or Intelligems in Slack to be like, hey, all these tests are identical. All the branch names are the same name. The only difference is they're on different pages. Like, does that actually make sense? Like, do I have to consider like the NCAC for each different funnel to actually work out like success there? And that's like been kind of difficult for us because we want to see like, okay, like does this change like effective efficiency overall? And like, are we seeing it on the conversion side and on the LTR side? But like, you still like there are things that like aren't answered in platform, and this is why you have to go back to like the CS and growth team and be like, hey, like we're doing it on these funnels. Like, what are you guys seeing on your end, like per kind of like ad set, and then we can kind of like create a business case of like how impactful the test was overall. But yeah, that's the hard part right now, like because we're running out the same test on so many different surfaces.
I think something you said there actually goes back to your like bed sheet analogy. Like we use the bed sheet analogy to talk about like the different metrics moving, but I think like in general, there's so much going on, especially at like a rapidly scaling direct to consumer brand where CS team, ad team, website team, retail team, merchant, like there is so much going on across the business that like these changes, even if you are able to see like everything on platform, like things are happening outside of like your window in the business. And like this is why I'm such a fan of like, I don't know, AI MCPs. Like if you connect the right data to feed like the source, and like I know you're a power user of the Ask IntelliJAMS bot. It's like if you can pull all this information and kind of like ask it in different ways and like stitch different data sources together, you can get like a much clearer view on everything. And I've also been seeing brands use this to be like, as wins happen and as like we find something interesting in one area of the business, put the parameters in place on like what that looks like so that like Slack messages can go out to the team and be like, hey, like we learned this so that what you learn on the site makes its way to the ad team. What the CS team is learning somewhere when it's like, hey, this is actually not an opinion anymore. This is an objective truth. Let's make sure the entire team actually knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, the record keeping is so important for scaling businesses because like something might work in this particular setting and not in something else, or you might want to like go revisit a test that may have succeeded that you didn't push because of a technical limitation, or was like a dumpster fire, and you really want to like go back and review like why it was so bad. Um, so the record keeping's huge, and like the Intelligems bot has been like super helpful in kind of standardizing that. We have a pretty great workflow with Claude and Notion and the Intelligems MCP to be like, hey, this test, like, let's make sure we get all the key metrics in Notion at the time we ended the test, just so we have that snapshot. Rips the test link from Intelligems as well. Then we kind of push an update into a Slack channel that's like, hey, this test ended or this test went live. Here's like a preview of the test, and here's like what we're testing and why. And that's been like really great, I think, for collaboration. But I'm a stickler for that record keeping that I find so important because like you want to go back and like have that answer. And I mean, like we're running 20 plus tests right now in Intelligem. So no one has like that kind of memory. And like also the fun part of like D2C too is like just the hit the refresh button and watching it do something. So you to actually go back and like have a retro on like on these tests is maybe not like the sexiest part, but it's definitely really important when you're going back and like, you know, you got to get like board materials ready. Like, okay, here's all the stuff we did and like what happened.
I think that's super smart, and not even just for like the board and like the record keeping, but when someone undoubtedly in 4 months says, Mike, I think we should do this, and you're like, hey, we've actually tried something similar and it didn't result in what you were looking for. Here is that test. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't go test it again, but like knowing this, which we do know, should we proceed forward with that? Or, hey, here's a massive win we got in the past, but like what we're seeing now is not congruent with what we saw back then. Should we retest it? So like you basically have this library of like, I can go back and draw on these learnings to be like, should we try it again? Should we change how we want to approach something in the future? Because like we have these learnings from the past.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like the next stage of that, I mean, that's just like a well-run org, right? Like, hey, we have our ducks in a row. You know, when leadership asks about something or someone on the newer on the teams is like, did you test something? You can show them like date and time and why, which is like always a good feeling. And I think like is great org kind of structure. I will say though, like the next like what is the next iteration of that? Some sort of, and we've probably kind of been experimenting with this already, but it's like our org moves so quickly and we have like other I guess like company-wide initiatives that we need to execute against, whether it's like a product launch or you know, a big like theme update that we need help with. Like those are like sort of the step function changes in an e-com organization. But the testing side, what I really want to try to do is essentially use that like Notion roadmap or database of all of our tests and create some sort of like agent that helps us look for like inefficiencies in the tests or like to spur like new testing. And then whether that's like kicking back to Intelligems to help like your agent like build us that experience. And it's kind of have that like always on like flywheel effect. Like what's Intelligems like does do this a little bit where it's like, hey, looking at your site data and it's like, here are some tests we suggest. But I think it'd be so much more valuable if there was like that window, that context window of like all the other tests that you've run in the past and their exact impacts, and also like the semantics, right? Like we look at new to business versus new to product, et cetera, like percent of subscription orders. Like I'm going on a rant here, but like one big thing, if you're listening, software developers, one big thing is like, and this is like a really hard to do, by the way, but like figuring out like a good model for predictive LTV would be so sick. That's looking at like past cohorts and being like, here's their LTV, like per either channel, a blended time of year, et cetera. And trying to figure out like, hey, you actually, this test was, you know, conversion negative or conversion flat, but your percent of subscription orders was up by like X factor. So really like your predictive LTV increased by this much, meaning that like you're actually like net positive on this test, despite like a near negative on conversion rate. And that chart doesn't exist yet in like a very accessible form. Like it's not hard work to get there, but it's like I wish like that was a key metric we can just suggest. We can just have on like all the time.
Man, something like just that whole, you said rant, that whole rant in there is like something that again, we talk a lot about at IntelliGEMS is a lot of times this work gets defined as like CR. Like we haven't used the term CRO in this conversation. We've been saying testing, experimentation. And like, I think you and I both use that term on purpose because like you're saying, hey, I'm focused on my NCAC to LTV ratios. I want to look at predictive LTV. I have these business goals that I'm in pursuit of. And this like cyclical nature that you were talking about is one of the reasons, like I've been calling this growth experimentation for a while instead of CRO, where it's like, I want to go find the next big opportunity for my business. And your point about it being cyclical is like, it's a never ending, it's never finished. It's if I want to continue to grow, I need to find what that next thing's going to be. And I need to experiment and try things and figure it out. And like, it's not about a singular metric. It's not about conversion rate optimization, CRO. It's like, I want to grow. And like my hypothesis, or I guess your hypothesis through here is like NCAC to LTV. As long as I keep that as my North Star, we're going to experiment and like, again, the bed sheet, move a bunch of different metrics. But as long as we are focused on that, we're going to find the next best, like the next big thing, the next big swing for Grüns.
Yeah, exactly. Like CRO kind of puts it into a pigeonhole a bit, but like you hit the nail on the head. Like IntelliGEMS and like actually testing things on your website are things that move the needle for the business, not looking at a metric in isolation.
Love it. All right, Mike, offers, personalized funnels, like know what your metric's going to be, run different offers, get more granular on like how you're going to experiment with that. For those listening, I guess 2 final questions I'd love to ask everyone. Where can people get more of you? Twitter, LinkedIn, newsletter, how can I get more Mike? And then what's your favorite part about IntelliGEMS for those listening?
I'm on LinkedIn, but the best way to see what I'm up to is just hop on over to Grüns.co and maybe you'll get in a test.
Go buy some stuff from Mike.
Go buy some stuff. Yes, please. And subscribe. Like and subscribe. What is my favorite feature about IntelliGEMS? A big privilege of mine in my career has been kind of growing with these tools. And I think I've been using IntelliGEMS for almost 4 years now. So it's like really incredible to see how much has been like packed into the tool. The thing I use like every single day probably is the on-site editor, and the new one with like agentic building has been a lot of fun to use. I just think like the way it's building like very reliably. Like, you can actually see the code that's being made there, and like you can work with Claude too to like get a little bit more robust, but you're just able to spin up MVPs of like widgets or products so quickly on the site that I've really enjoyed just doing that as opposed to like having to go to a designer and like do this whole process that we used to be sort of like handicapped by. It just made like everything so much faster, and it's a lot of fun.
Love it. All right, Mike, thank you so much. First returning brand guest.
It's an
Special
honor.
guy.
It's an honor. Thank you.